in your mind where it's like when you notice that feeling and it almost triggers you, I always say it's just a reminder of the thing that you want that's not there yet. But if you can shift that to be like, oh, thank you for inspiring me today and like getting me back on track for what I really want, and then say it. If you want abs, say it.
When you feel jealous or when you feel envy, it's a clear directional signal that that is something that you should also pursue.
The quicker you acknowledge what your true, like deep desires are, then it can kind of find its way to you and you can find the right things to bring you there. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Expand and Evolve podcast. I'm so excited because we have a guest joining us this week. Azaria, would you call yourself AZ Fitness? That's what I know you as. I'm like, I always think of the Instagram title, right? Um, and what's your last name? Because you
My
got
name's
married.
Azaria Glame. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. I love it. So Azaria Glame, welcome to this week's episode, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you. We're gonna whip through it really quickly, but I was driving home and I was thinking like I really want to go past, present, future in terms of where you started, because obviously you started in the fitness industry, and how
Mhm.
you we were just talking right before this, and how that brings you into like you can't have one without the other in regards to whether you're doing spirituality or life coaching or anything. And like you need all of it. Health is important to any of that. And so how you kind of transitioned from obviously being in the bodybuilding space, being in the fitness industry, and maybe what pulled you and led you to start to make that transition to more life coaching, if you want to start with that.
Yeah. Thanks for the question. So
Yeah.
I started my bodybuilding career. It's 10 years ago now. I started when I was 20 and I'm 31. So it's been
Yeah.
like over a decade. It started off as just something that I just ended up being really good at, not even on purpose. Like it's not like I had these big dreams and goals to be a bodybuilder growing up. I didn't. My parents were actually bodybuilders too, which is something that not many people know, but I grew up with my parents. They did like a show or two each. And then I just ended up doing a show in 2014. Turns out I was really good at it. And I just kind of kept it going. So then fast forward to 8 years of doing bodybuilding shows back to back. It was like 3 to 5 shows a year. So for anyone who's done a prep before, you know how intense that is. And you know, it does just consume a lot of life, especially when you're in the pro level. You have to be so dialed in. It's not like you're just doing it for fun. It was my career, it was my livelihood. And then I wanted to start a family and we got married. And I knew that in my 30s, I wanted it to look a little bit different. My whole 20s was traveling. I was very fortunate to be able to be sponsored for my travels, for my shows, to be taken all these beautiful spaces. And I just wanted something different for my 30s. So retired from bodybuilding and then started up my health coaching program. And I'm the founder of Rise Daily Wellness. So we do women's wellness retreats globally and in Canada. And I was working with women initially for weight loss. And then I realized that it was the only women that were having the sustainable weight loss, which is what I'm all about, was the ones that I was helping with the mindset development, self mastery, peeling back the layers as to why are you this way anyways. Because if we just put together a training program and send you a nutrition plan, it's not often going to stick. And I know that you know this too, being in the health and fitness world yourself. If you don't work on who you are and you don't work on why you are the way you are and the underlying of all the things, yeah, you might lose the 10 to 20 pounds, but your default setting is going to bring you right back. So for me, it's really important to have my clients make progress, yes, but also sustain their progress. So I then dedicated my practice to helping the women in the circle create sustainable, like lasting change that they're also every year they're propelling forward. So that's kind of how it like bridged together because I was realizing and I was seeing that you actually can't have one without the other.
100%. And like that's something that I found when I was doing nutrition coaching too. I was like, what the heck? Like, why can't people just do this? And then you realize your mind works one way. And unless you like not fix, but work with the root of why people are having issues with food to begin with, because ultimately our bodies are not destined to just want to be overweight and want to eat a bunch of unhealthy food. Like those are emotionally charged things. And so when you bring it back to the mindset and what the root is of when you reach for the thing, when you cope in that way, you're able to actually heal it and you don't have those habits anymore. And then that's when you have that creating creating that sustainable weight loss overall, which I love that you're doing that now. Why don't you talk a little bit about your retreats and what has brought you into that space of doing wellness retreats? Because I think obviously something and things would have happened in your life to send you, or were you always on the spiritual path? I feel like
Mhm.
things usually happen and it brings you to this like deeper connection with God, source, universe, whatever. And so then when you feel that, you're like, oh, this is the thing that I need to bring in and start helping people with. So what happened for you that pulled you there and then made you realize like, okay, of course I know you wanted to start a family. And so if for anyone that doesn't understand how intense bodybuilding is too, like when you're saying you were doing 5 shows a year, that's insane because you're constantly on this regimen of like your whole life is discipline, like discipline, discipline, discipline. You have no freedom in that. You can feel free because you get so in the discipline and the routine, but like you don't actually have true freedom to just like, oh, be yourself and like let go. You can't. And so I don't know if you want to speak on what made you want to transition and what have you found like from I'm interested in both. And then bodybuilding industry, of course, that whole realm of life and fitness and things versus this more like sustainable wellness practice that you're teaching people, just like the shift in how you feel transitioning between the two.
So I want to revert back to what you just said in regards to not feeling free with the bodybuilding. I'm going to disagree with that. For
Yeah.
me, as an athlete, I did. I'm not like your average competitor that is doing it for a trophy or because it's a chore or something that other people are doing. That wasn't my intention, which is I do believe the only reason I was able to sustain it for almost a decade. I feel like if it felt like it wasn't freeing and that I was being caged and it wasn't enjoyable for me, I would have done a couple of shows or a few years and then I would have found something else. But that wasn't the case for me. I'm much different than many people when it comes to like when I'm eating food, it's for fuel. I don't find pleasure. I don't need pleasure from food, which isn't the case for most women. It's like
Mhm.
comfort or social life. Like we bridge food with other things, which makes it hard if you're doing bodybuilding shows. So that's why that was easy for me. Like I was still able to enjoy my life. I had a lot of fun doing the shows and being a part of the industry. Like I did not feel like I was in a cage whatsoever. It was almost more freeing to be in it because that was who I was at that
Yeah.
time. The women's wellness retreats. So growing up, I was always the girl in the high school cafeteria that if I saw somebody sitting by themselves, I would just go and sit with them. I wouldn't have to speak with them, they wouldn't have to speak with me, but I wanted to let them know I was there and they weren't alone. That has been my personality, that's been my heart since I can remember. That's just who I am. I also didn't have a lot of girlfriends growing up. I've been on my own since I was 16 years old. So I've had to kind of like figure it the fuck out from a really
Mhm.
early age, which led me to not really being around a bunch of people because I'm working and I'm doing all these different things to keep my life afloat. And I realized that there was a lot of women like me that weren't always interested in hanging out with other people, but we had so many layers. We have so much in common. And I started the Self Mastery Circle, which is my group mentorship. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea who would come. I had no idea what I would talk about, but I was called to expand and to be of service to not just one on one coaching. Because as you know, if you're working with someone one on one, you're very limited to who you can reach. My vision for life is broad, it's big vision, big energy. So I want to work with as many people as I can at the same time. So that's why the group was the thing that I wanted to go for. Creative self mastery. And then I can't even remember what initiated wanting to do the retreats, but I knew there wasn't anything like being in person, holding each other, being seen, supporting the sisterhood, the connection. You can only go so far online, right? It's like the long distance relationship. It works and it's great. And I'm so grateful for that. But you can only get so much out of that.
Mhm.
So then I hosted my first one and I was like, I have to do this. I saw the transformation within the women just from after a couple of days. I saw the sisterhood, the connection that was made from just a couple of days. It was like nothing I or the women involved had ever experienced. And so I feel my realm in life is to connect, it's to connect people. That is what I'm really good at. It's what I really enjoy. So I now just if I find something that's like I'm decent at and it makes me light up and it services to other, I'm going to continue to follow that call. We just hosted a retreat in Portugal, okay?
Mhm.
So it was middle of October, and long story short, complete alignment that I even found this space. Went to the space, I saw it, I started to cry. I felt the energy. I'm like, we have to have a retreat here. Keep in mind, we just had a retreat last April. I get there, it's October. Okay. And then I go, it's happening. And she's like next year, right? I'm like, no, like next month. And this was to the lady.
Yeah.
And I had never even had the thought of having like two retreats in 1 year, especially that close back to back. And the next week, the tickets were out. The following week, the tickets had all sold. A week, or sorry, a month later, everyone was here in Portugal. I was in the middle of a circle when everyone was meditating, and it was after a Kundalini session. I don't know if you've ever done that, but such
Yeah.
powerful work. So it was after Kundalini, big energy, a lot of stuff moving. And I sat there and I looked out because I was facilitating the circle, and I saw the women breathing and I heard them, and I felt in that moment like that was what my calling was. It was like to create spaces like this.
Hmm.
And so that's where that comes from. The women that come, they leave never the same. The countdown is already on until the next one in April, which I hope to see you at.
Yeah.
And it's been something that's felt so effortless and so in alignment. And I think you can relate to this, Carly, with like the work that you do and the people that you serve and the light that you are in this world. When you're in your light and you're on your mission, things don't feel complex and they don't feel like a lot of energy is drained or consumed from it because you're lit up by the work that you do and you're excited for it and you're energized for it and it actually adds to you. So that's what I feel like every single day that I get to be of service to these women, to host these retreats, to create these circles. It fills me up and it allows me to give more to the world.
Yeah. I fully agree because I find the same thing that you said, you can do so much online, but I feel when you turn off the call or you turn off the coaching session, it's for the person on the other end. They can just go do the dishes and go do the thing and like go back and just go right back into their regular life. Where when you're at a
Mm-hmm.
retreat space and you're with people in person, I feel like how you feel is a feeling that can never leave. Like you remember that, and I also feel that the deep, deep connection, it just leaves an imprint where, of course, we can feel inspired and motivated and like our thoughts can be challenged on calls, but there's just something that I feel stays when you are in that in-person connection that's so much more powerful than anything I feel like you could ever do online. The reach and the impact is just what's the right word for it? Like it's not just life changing, like it's life lasting, like it stays with you. And I
Oh,
feel like that's so
yeah.
powerful. Women need it. And I think that's where the massive disconnection is for a lot of people is we're on social and we see people and we might feel that flicker of inspiration or that flicker that kind of makes us feel good, but I feel like it's when you take the time to get out of your normal life, go sit
Mm,
with women to actually be supported and see, wait, I can, like you said, be seen here, I can be felt here, my emotions are safe here, like these people love me and they accept me and I feel connected and I feel that sisterhood, like we are meant to live in that as women. And social can be great, connects us to lots of people, but if you're not taking that time away from even as mothers, I feel like so many of us feel guilty leaving our kids, but I'm like, you will be a better mother if you took 48 hours to go be with you because then you feel so much more centered and good in yourself. And I feel like that's what the world needs. Like we're so many of us are spending time on our devices. This is just a random story, but yesterday morning the power was out and no devices were working. Like internet was down. We had to start the morning with candles because it was still dark out. And my parents live in my basement suite and they came upstairs and the kids were here and we all spent time as a family for like 3 hours. And I went, holy, like this is what life would have been before we had all these things just distracting us all the time. And then it's like that pulls us away from our presence. And I went, wow, I need to call that exact experience back into my day every day where it's like zero device time, go to candlelight. Like we just, our bodies appreciate it instead of artificial light. And I just went, that's so powerful. And even at retreats, like I find I don't use my device, I don't go on my phone. It's fully one to one, just community and connection. And I feel like it's the most beautiful thing to cultivate. And that's why you're like, no, I love this. It feels good. Yeah.
Yes, girl.
Yeah.
And it's we heal in spaces where we feel safe. So
Hmm.
when you're around a space where you're like, I can let my guard down, it's safe to fill up, it's safe to not be on, it's safe to be device free. There's so much, like you said, life changing, but life lasting
Hmm.
experience that comes from that because you're safe in that moment and you feel it to your fucking core
Yep.
that you are well, all is well. It's a safe place to be. I would
Hmm.
love to encourage you, Carly, to bring in that candlelight and the disconnect and the lights off to your family setting like once a week. Wouldn't that
Hmm.
be amazing to do, to commit to
Yes.
like powers out? Just like I'm sure you've seen the conversation sometimes on Instagram. It's like, imagine if Instagram was like a 9 to 5 and then it like shut off and you were like
Yeah.
closed. Wouldn't that be something? And then you could just be present because I feel like that's such a I love social media and I love what it's brought me and I love who I connect with.
Same.
But it's such a distraction if not utilized properly. And it can actually harm you more than it can serve you, especially if you're not on there with intention. All of the
Yes.
girls that I coach that I help with their business, it's intention setting every single time you open the app. You never know what you're going to get into or what you're going to see or what opinion's going to come or what type of programming or brainwashing you're going to receive when you open your phone. So you have to be ready for it. And it's crazy to me that we're at that point where it's like you just don't know. And so set your
Well, and it
intention
can
before.
completely alter your energy, your mood, your
It
day. Like
does.
it can
It
change
does.
everything. And so if you don't, especially if you're growing an Instagram account, the wrong, like let's say a reel goes to the wrong crowd, if something goes viral, they always will send it to like the hate-filled Instagram part at some point. And so it's like when that happens, like do you have an intention on the app? Can you get off? Can you tune out of it or is it going to stay with you for the rest of the day? And I feel like that happens all the time or people jump into comparison or all of it. So I feel like that's such a good tidbit and point to take if you use social media, especially as a business tool. Like every time you're getting on there, go on with an intention. Are
So
you
I
going?
want to add to that,
Yes.
Kay.
Yes.
So
Please do.
intention number one, also set a timer. If you're someone who kind of is on there for more than you need to be, set a timer on your phone, have the intention, okay, I'm going to go share, connect, like, interact, post, know what you're doing on there. Like go in there fully knowing what you're doing, set a timer, and then use that as inspiration. If there's someone on there that you're comparing yourself to, this is the signal you're giving to the universe. I'm just going to use somebody that has body goals. So say you see this hot chick and she's got like the legs that you dream of and the smile and all this amazing thing, and you look at her and you look at her with hate, but you really want that too. What that does is you send a signal to the universe that that's bad and to keep that from you. So although you enjoy it and that's something you're also striving for, your energy towards it is actually keeping it from you. So that's why it's so important when you're on Instagram to not get sucked into the comparison. If you are inspired by someone, tell them, acknowledge them, be loving to them, give as you wish to receive, do as you wish to receive, right? And that alone of like setting your intention, setting a timer, using it as inspiration will change your experience on social media.
Okay, let's dive into that a little because I feel like this is so common where people are in that like must be nice. Must be nice. Oh, it's easy for you. Oh, good for you. It's like very I'm sure you have felt that too on Instagram where, and I notice this in my business because I work with so many people who always see something for somebody else and can't see it for themselves. But I always say,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you feel envy or jealousy, it's like go into that. That's something that you actually want. And the quicker that you can acknowledge that you want this thing and be like, and kind of whatever you have to do, and I don't know if you have a tip on this, but to switch it in your mind where it's like when you notice that feeling and that like icky feeling that you get when you see it, and it almost triggers you, I always say it's just a reminder of the thing that you want that's not there yet. But if you can shift that to be like, oh, thank you for inspiring me today and like getting me back on track for what I really want, and then say it. I think for some of us, we're so afraid. Let's say it's the abs or the legs. It's like, that's more obviously not as deep as other things, but that could be something that you really truly want. And so it's like, say it instead of being like, oh, yeah, like those girls with the abs. It's like, if you want abs, say it. Say it.
Yeah.
And it's like the quicker you acknowledge what your true, 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 like deep desires are, then it can kind of find its way to you and you can find the right things to bring you there. But I don't know if you have tips on that because I feel, especially as women, getting on social media, the comparison can be so strong. And then you can leave feeling worthless instead of allowing it to show you like what your deepest desires really are. So I don't know if you have tips on that, but that would be
I
cool.
do. So beautifully said. And I think this is a great conversation. So as you also mentioned, when you're feeling that envy or jealous, it's a clear directional signal that that is something that is of interest to you. We often view it as a different thing though, but when you feel jealous or when you feel envy, it's a clear directional signal that that is something that you should also pursue.
Mm.
Jealousy and envy aren't feelings that you can randomly create or that they just like pop up and they don't mean anything. They always mean something. So
They're
when you feel
strong.
they're
Like that
strong,
is a strong feeling. And it's, I would say too, it's not frequent. So when it shows
yeah,
up, it's like,
exactly.
this means something. Pay
It's
attention
give
to it.
it's giving you a sign. So instead of staying in that, which most people do, you know, you're on Carly's podcast, great. So you have the awareness. Ask yourself, what is this showing me? How can I celebrate her in this way? If you see somebody's life and you're like, oh, wouldn't isn't it nice that they're just always traveling or they have a great relationship? Instead of looking at it as something that you want and then kind of putting that hate towards it, look at it and see what it's there to teach you, and then find a way to celebrate it. Whether you write it out, whether you speak it out, whether you comment, whether you message her, because then with that, you're now changing your energy instantly to say, that's a good thing. I want more of that in my life. And if you don't act on that and you sit in that and it becomes you, girl, you're in for a fucking hard ride, especially in the social media world. And you will always feel farther away from your desires than you need to.
Mm.
So when you feel that way, take it as a blessing. Thank you for showing me what I really want. How can I
Yes.
get myself closer? What can I do to feel good about this? And then do that.
Right.
I also want to
I
say something about the viral videos quickly. I
yeah.
had all my training videos for whatever reason go viral. I think it's just the way that it is on like on my page. I think that has something to do with it. But there was one video, it was like almost 2 million views, and I had to turn off the comments because like you said, all of the commenting, I'm just like, I can't. Every day I wake up and there's like thousands of all these conversations that I want nothing to do with. And it's so funny because people think they're like, oh, I want a video to go viral. And it's like, okay, what will you do with that video when it goes viral? How will you feel? How will you react? Because if you're not in a good space, and like luckily for myself, I'm pretty strong and like I'm confident in who I am. And if you say different words about me, like that's totally fine. I'm not going to take it to heart. But not a lot of people are this way, and they'll take it to heart, and then it becomes like something that they stew on inside. So it's funny with people wanting to go viral. It's like, what are you actually going to do with a viral video? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to bring you anything of what you think in your mind that it brings.
No, and like I think people think it's the answer. They're like, "Oh, then that will increase my reach."
It's
But I
not.
think, right? And
It's
I'm like, I think with social especially because like I've had them, I always find they send it to like the hateful men at some point. Like at some point the viral video goes to the hateful men and then it's just like these slews of like miserable comments. I've actually never experienced on the women's side where it's just like women hating, hating, hating. It's always been men.
neither, neither.
Interesting. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I always remind her, I'm like, dang, these men are angry. Like they need this love and healing just as much as we do. Because I'm like, to feel this much hate against women, like it runs deep as a collective society because I'm like, there's a lot of miserable men on this app using it to spew hate towards women any chance that they can get. Anyways, so it's like if a video goes viral, I think for a lot of people, they think that that's their answer. Like that's going to give me the reach. And something that I've realized is I'm like, maybe you're not meant to have the reach yet. Like maybe there's things that you need to develop and grow through and become in order to hold that also. Because if you get the reach too early, sorry, my voice is going. I feel like, could you actually do like you said, are you strong enough in your sense of self that that's not going to completely throw you when you get all of that hate? Because I know for me, as videos have gone viral, I'm like, they don't pull me or trigger me or make me feel inadequate. Of course, there's some comments where I'm like, ooh, that like stings. That's really mean, but it's really rare. And I feel like if you can kind of hone in on your like own energy and how you handle those things, they go away. Every single time they go away, they run their course. But again, it's like if you engage, what are you going to get more of? Even the algorithm needs
So
energy. It's going to be like, oh, there's hate. Okay, great. Let's bring more hate. This is creating engagement. So you have to be
yes.
really mindful what you take in and engage on because you're just pulling more of that to you.
Yeah, and if you say you have a viral video, but you don't have the systems and you don't have the product and you don't have the staying power and you don't have the testimonials, it's really not going to do any good for your business. I know that firsthand. And anytime, like back in my bodybuilding days, there was some pretty rude comments just because how I looked and like my muscles and all that stuff.
Yeah,
And
for
I
anyone
learned,
listening, you look like you're so tiny, but in videos you look jacked. Like
yeah,
you're IFBB pro, no?
yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah.
you're she's got this girl's got muscles, okay? You can't tell because she's still small, but you in videos you're gonna look like jacked because your muscles are popping through. Anyways,
So funny story on that. Anytime I do a bodybuilding show, because like I have a pretty feminine face and you know,
yeah.
and I would be like fully dressed like how I'm now, like covered. So I'd walk into these shows and like no one thought I was even competing because it's like a pretty girl on stage. Like, how does this work? Like, it doesn't always line up that way. And then I take off my clothes, my sweater, and then they're like, "What the?" Like, we
It's
had
so
no idea.
unexpected. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's unexpected. Like you said, I have a small frame. I'm 5'3". I'm tiny, but when I'm competing, I'm dense.
Yes.
So it's hilarious. Yeah.
You're
Um,
like tiny but mighty, right? You're like
Tiny
one
but
of them.
mighty.
Yeah.
Yeah, grit and grace. I've got like a really fine and beautiful balance of like I train like a beast and I'm strong, like so fucking strong. But then I'm like very graceful. I have curated over time just like a beautiful mix of both feminine, masculine, being in the flow after my workouts, which is very masculine. I'll go
Yes.
upstairs and I'll tap into the feminine just by breathing and intention setting. So it's like there's so many things that I've done over the years that have
Mhm.
helped me to be this way. It's not like it just happened. Like there's steps to it, right?
Right. Because you can get, why don't we talk a little bit about that? Because I think masculine feminine is just an interesting topic to go into. I know we don't have a ton of time. There was something else I was going to ask you and I forget, but let's talk masculine feminine for a sec. Because I think, especially me right now, I went through this phase of like realizing, oh my God, I'm so masculine. Oh my God, how do I become a girl? Oh, how do I become feminine? Like I went through all of that. And I had to realize like you're meant to be both. There's going to be seasons and spaces in your day where you have to turn it on and be logical and be in your masculine and be decisive and intentional and like very like towards something. And then there's
Mhm.
other areas where you do need to let yourself just like be and flow and tap into your intuition and like your body. And I think it's just finding, like you said, that beautiful balance because I think, like anything, if you're in one all of the time, like you're hyper masculine, hyper independent, like rah, 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 rah. And like you may have felt this in different seasons of bodybuilding too, where you get so in on the goal, where I'm like, some seasons are meant to be like that and they're beautiful. And then other seasons you may need to like take a step back so you don't hit burnout. But I think all of them are necessary. And I'm sure you felt this too with social. There was this big wave of like, oh, you need to be feminine, you need to be feminine. And I'm like, yes. And if you're a female that's trying to build a business, do the things, be a mom, like do shit in your life, there's gonna be seasons of masculinity too. And it's not bad. It doesn't make you a man. Like, just like men need times where they can soften and not be like, "Rah, rah, rah," like that doesn't work for anybody. So I don't know if you want to speak on your experience to masculine and feminine polarities, like what you found working with
I
women or even for
remember
yourself.
I remember seeing your video when you had that realization and you shared a reel and it was after you'd done sprints and it was one of the first time that you'd done sprints in a really long time and you were sitting by the water. I can literally see you. I don't know how I remember this, but I can
Yeah.
see you. You were filming yourself and you were like by the water and you had just finished your sprints and you're like, oh, I like finally figured this out. And what you figured out is that you need a mix of both energies. You are a woman because you are a woman. You don't need to find a way to become more feminine. You just are. And I think that's the issue with what's going on in social media right now of like, you need to do this and you need to do that and you need to do this. No, you do not. You
The
are because
do
you
is
are.
masculine. The
Yes.
do is masculine in itself.
So feminine energy is open, flow, receptive being. Masculine is the doing, the direction, the goal setting, the focus. The masculine is the banks, the feminine is the river. It flows. You need the banks to keep the river flowing.
Mm-hmm.
You need that. So it's been such like a buzzword, a hot topic. And I think also not done in a very proper way, I want to say. It's kind of annoyed me to watch this, to see how manipulating these feminine coaches can be to make women feel like they're not being feminine enough if they don't do this, this, and this. That's wrong. I don't believe in that. I don't stand by that. I don't think that's right. I do believe you need to find your own balance. What's good for me might be different for Carly, and vice versa. It's my responsibility as a human in this experience to find the balance that works for my life. And knowing that it's going to be different than what I'm seeing on social media. And knowing that if I don't do as the people on social media do, doesn't mean I'm less of a woman, right? Just because I don't film myself frolicking
Mhm.
or dancing doesn't mean I'm not even not doing that. Maybe I'm just not filming it, right?
Right.
So I feel like we tend to think we have to be sharing all the feminine things that we're doing, or we're not feminine, and what are they going to think of us? Am I not enough of a woman? You are because you are. You're a woman because you are. There's nothing more that you need to be or do. Let yourself understand that and know that and be in that and embody that. And it will give you so much freedom, because now you don't have this checklist of things that you need to do to be a woman. You're just a woman because you're a woman, and find the things that fit really well for you. Have some baths, dance, pleasure yourself, whatever you want to do, be with girls, hanging out, go to sister circles, whatever you want to do to add that flow. But then also, like you said, Carly, if you're working towards a business, you also need that structure in the day-to-day life. I do something, I call them energy checks and energy breaks throughout the day. So say like you can relate to this. You host calls, I host calls, we're in the leadership mode. It's masculine, right? Leadership, masculine. When that call is done, if I'm going downstairs to my husband, do you think I want to be in a leadership role? Probably not. Okay, so what's one thing that I could do to tap out of that leadership role? I could do some breath work. I could get changed. I could visualize changing out of a different energy form. I could just literally be for 5 minutes and be intentional with, okay, my leadership role is done. I'm going to soften and be in the moment and be present and receive, and being intentional with your time so that the masculine energy doesn't flow throughout the entire day. And then you get to the end of the day and you're like, I'm so burnt out. I was just on all day, took no time because I couldn't have a bath. I couldn't do this. That's not the point. That's not going to work for you long term. What you do need to do is find a way that you can. It's like the dance of like in, out, in, out, in, out, some longer stints, some shorter stints. Find that dance, find the rhythm that works for you. But most importantly, just be aware of it, be intentional with it, and then you're going to find that rhythm of your life where you feel good all throughout the day, not just on weekends or not just when you're not working. If you're feeling burnt out, it's a clear signal that something needs to shift throughout the day, right? That's not a normal feeling. That's not how you should be feeling all the time.
Yeah, and I can speak to this exactly what I found for myself yesterday. So I had a bunch of stuff to do. And this is where I knew like I've shifted as a person, because old me would be like, it's fine, just power through, just get it done, just get it done, just get it done. So I have a bunch of stuff that I could have finished last night, but I was already feeling tired, agitated, and like I just needed time for myself. Old me would have pushed that away and been like, you don't need it. You can deal with it tomorrow. Finish what you need to get done. And I went, no, you need to prioritize you first so that you have the energy to finish the task. And so instead of just powering through it last night, I took an hour. I could have easily fallen asleep. And I was like, you're going to actually find more value in this hour alone by yourself without your kids, to journal, to read, to do all these things in peace. And then tomorrow morning, then you can jump back in and like finish the stuff you need to do. But old me would have just powered through and got it all done. And then what happens? I end up building resentment and feeling like that, like whether it leads to burnout or you're angry or you feel like uppity and anxious and whatever, I would have felt resentful against, ultimately I want to blame my kids. I want to blame everybody else, but it's like it's me. I was
Mm-hmm.
letting everyone else's needs take away from what I knew I needed for myself. And that's where, again, when you talk about the river and you need the banks and then the river, you need to hold that container for yourself. Like you can't expect
Mm-hmm.
the kids to know or the husband to know or these other people to know. It's like if you know you are starting to feel that, where we take on too much, we do all the things, and you know you need time for yourself, can you create the structure for yourself? And that's where like the masculine feminine can be beautiful, because if you know, okay, I need, like, let's say it's 30 minutes for a bath. Structure it into your day where you get 30 minutes for you to take the bath. That's where you can
Yeah.
like pair them together and have them match so beautifully. Where it is like I found for myself with the masculine was I had like I was seeing masculine in the wounded masculine instead of how can I be the provider, protector, the supporter of myself. And then that's
Mhm.
when you take that I don't know, structure and implement it to benefit you, which is like that time that I got last night instead of just going to sleep and then dealing with all the chaos again. I was like, no, you need this time. So again, taking for myself structure, masculine, to sit and be in the flow, which is feminine for the hour that I knew I needed. So I feel like
And
so beautiful. Go ahead.
here's the thing with like being a superwoman and an entrepreneur and all the things. We're never going to get it all done. So what is the point of trying every single day to get it all done? All that's going to lead to, like you said, you're going to feel irritated. You'll build up resentment. You're going to spew at your kids or your husband or the people that don't really deserve it because you're out of check. If you can give yourself, you have what I write out a list every morning. So I call it like, what is enough for me today? And I
Mm.
just write out
Wait, say it again. Your what is enough for me list. Like that's so good.
what is enough for me today?
Yeah.
Because I know each day is going to be different. So then I prioritize, okay, what's enough for me today? And then I do that. And then if it's not on my what's enough for me to do today, it waits till tomorrow and I write that tomorrow. So then I'm ending my day not feeling like, oh my gosh, I didn't do all the things or I need to do so much more. I've been intentional in my morning. What's enough for me today? I write that out. And then that has helped me immensely not feel like I'm behind, not feel like I'm burnt out, because I'm very clear on what's enough for me to today. And then you just get that done. And then knowing that every day is going to look different. And that's okay. And that's the point. Days shouldn't look identical, right? We're not robotic. It's not Groundhog Day. This is our life. This is our one life. It matters. It's not a checkbox life. What's enough for me today? Schedule in joy, schedule in white space, schedule in time where you don't have anything written in your agenda so that you can enjoy being you. You can enjoy being in the present moment. You can enjoy being bored. Let yourself be free. Um, and I think if and when, a lot of women are going to hear this podcast, we just want to encourage you to apply that to your life and to know that it's going to get done, but it doesn't need to get done all at once. And your balance of feminine, masculine energy matters way more than what anyone else on social media tells you. So find that for you first and foremost.
Yeah, knowing some days there's going to be more of a flow and some days there's going to be more of a structure and embracing that. And like you said with the to-do list, I think something that's really helped me, the same thing. I always used to write my three things that were my non-negotiables before I went to bed. So I didn't wake up in a panic. They were already there. And it was like, okay, these are the main things you're getting done. If you get extra done, great. But as long as you did these three things, you can feel like you did enough. And because especially in the business world, there's so many ideas. Like if you're creative, you're tapped into your feminine, you're going to have ideas all the time. Like you're going to be flowing with ideas. There's so many endless opportunities for things that you could do. So it's like, how do you cap that in a way that it's like, okay, but what am I doing right now? What's the one thing
Yeah.
that I'm doing that I could actually do today? Because I think we can also get stuck in that if you're too airy fairy flowy, which is amazing, have all those ideas, but what are you doing to actually execute any of them? That's where, again,
Mhm.
you have to pull your masculine in because you can have all of these amazing ideas. And I see this with some people I talk to, they always have an idea. Amazing. You could make $1 million off of that, but are you ever going to implement it? Like you need your masculine structure to like implement the thing that you're thinking about. And so I think taking that step of what's enough for me today and what's the best first step, like always remembering like what's that one thing I can do, and when like doing that one thing may be enough, if you have time for more, great. But then it's like breaking up with that, like hating yourself and being so mean to yourself when you don't do it all. It's like you're never going to do it all. So don't be so hard on yourself because, like you said, you could literally every single day feel like you're not doing enough. And then ultimately that makes you in that not enoughness. And it's just not true. It's just, there's too much in this world to do for you to do it all in a day.
So I want to go back to what you said about the non-negotiable. So that's also something I used to do until I realized what you just said also.
Yeah.
If there's more that I do get done, then that works too, which is when I
Yes.
started adding to the list. So that's when
Yes.
I stopped doing the non-negotiables because I would have 3 non-negotiables, but then I would get that all done. And then I would have 7 more added. And then I would try to get that all done too. So that's why I
Mm,
switched from like the non-negotiables and then adding two, because that's open-ended. Like you said, we're
yeah.
creative. we've got lots on the go. We have always have these ideas. We're executing. We're in the flow. So when does that end? If we're adding like if there is no stop to the non-negotiables, it just so I noticed for myself that I had the non-negotiables, but then I would do the 3 or the 5, and then there'd be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then that's when it's like, okay, not enough, not enough, and it's like, no, what's enough for me
Yeah.
today? And
Yeah.
that is just a different term for a non-negotiable, but you're
Right.
solidifying it, and then you're
Yes.
not adding in. And I do also think to add to that is it can come from a protection mechanism. I know for
Mm-hmm.
myself, being on my own since I was 16, needing to fend, needing to create, needing to in a point in my life hustle, and then bringing that into like the later life, it's like, okay, I'm doing this to protect myself. But
Mm-hmm.
if we don't understand that it's a protection mechanism and we don't work through that, that's when you can feel, I'm not enough. I'm not doing enough. This will never be enough because you haven't worked through why you feel that way in the first place.
Wait, let's end on this because I think this is important. Where just that protection mechanism in the first place, because I think this is something some people don't even realize is a thing. Like they can think like, no, I'm just productive. No, I just get lots done. No, I'm just goal driven. No, I'm
Mhm.
just super high achiever. No, I just love to do stuff. Because that was me too. That was me. It was
Mhm.
like, no, I can, especially before kids, like I could work 14 hours, no problem. I could be on, I could be doing stuff, I could be doing whatever. When I had a baby, I was like, oh, like I can't do all this stuff. And then if you're not doing all this stuff, who are you? It would make me
Yeah.
feel worthless from not doing stuff. And it was
Yep.
like, okay, hold on a second. So I've tied my entire importance as a human being to what I do in a day. And that's where
Mhm.
just bringing that awareness to kind of break that down and realize, like, okay, and if you did nothing today, does that really true that you're worthless? Or like was being you and just having a day enough? And that's just like
Mhm.
I feel like our society is so heavily driven in like the doing, doing, doing. So I don't know if you want to speak to that. We can end on that in just regards to what you have seen with women who maybe are in that state and yeah, what you feel has helped.
What I've experienced and what I've observed is that it's always coming from fear. It's always coming from a lower vibration. So if you look on the emotional guidance scale system, you'll see that love, appreciation, joy is at the top, fear, hatred, jealousy is at the bottom. So what usually happens is when women are trying to do all the things and there is no shut off and there is no appreciation for what is now, it is 9 times out of 10, and I can confidently say that, coming from a fear state. I won't be enough. I won't have enough. This isn't enough. What if this? What if that? And it's all fear driven. So it's really important to understand your underlying beliefs, your core beliefs of who you are, what you think you're capable of, what you're tying your self worth to. Just like you said, you tied your self worth to what I do in a day. And if I don't do this, then who am I? And what's the point of living? So
Mm,
if that is where you're at, there is some fun inner work to do around what you believe you're here for and getting out. And it takes a bit of time and it takes some guidance to get out of the fear state, and that being your operating system. And a lot of people unknowingly, unconsciously, are actually operating from a fear state, I'm going to say majority of their life. And that is why you see the way society is, especially in the Western world. In Europe, I will say it's different.
mm.
It's just different. When you come here, girl, you're gonna see it's different. Like it has a piece about it where no one is trying to keep up to the next person or to find worth in just what they do within the day. It's more of like a presence of who you are, and it's not based on what you do within the day.
Well, it's not your identity, right?
Yeah, it's not your identity. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Just your identity. I've talked to so many people about that, where it's like the identity of who you are, what you do shouldn't be what who you are. But so many of us, especially here, that's how we're raised. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with your life? Who are you gonna be? What are you gonna do? And it's like that's not who you are. It's what you may do and how maybe you earn a living, but that's not you and your essence. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I think that's really valuable to just note. And I almost felt like crying thinking about how many people um are so like that's so deeply ingrained in their just operating system, they don't even realize that that's not how they should feel every day. Like
Yeah.
that's I remember feeling it so deeply, I didn't even have awareness that I was doing it out of fear. Like that's how deep it is. You won't even hear this and be like, wow, I live my life out of fear. You may come, like it may just go right over your head because you don't even understand that that's how deep rooted that really is. And the attachment to it, because it's become your identity, is so strong. To think about letting that go can be like the scariest thing ever. And now when I think about it, I'm like, oh, I have no attachment anymore to like what I do in a day. If I do stuff, obviously I want to do stuff and and like serve and do things, but I'm like, it's not tied to my worth anymore. And I just feel for the people who it still is because that's rough. Like it was so rough.
I want to ask you, Carly, I have a bit more time than what I previously said. So,
Okay.
what do you think was the point that you were able to realize that? Like, was there a situation? Was it self-development? Like, what actually helped you to see that, okay, I'm operating from a fear state and I'm wanting to shift and move out of this? Like, do you remember what that was for you?
I feel like it's been built upon through so many, I would say, like I read books and then I kind of started learning about the scale of consciousness and like logically with hearing the information and then
Mm-hmm.
through breath work. And like I think breathwork journey after breathwork journey kept taking me deeper to understanding, whoa, wait a second. I'm way more powerful when I lay here and I do nothing. Like when I center in me, I can attract and magnetize anything. I don't need to physically do anything with my hands. It's like get centered, grounded, stop with all the busyness in you. You think it, and then you just take a few aligned actions and like it's coming. And when I had that shift, and like you can hear that, but when you feel it, it's so different. And I think it was that. And then working with plant medicine, just building, it was just building on me, solidifying that within me to truly understand that. But it wasn't a one day quick fix. It was slowly understanding. And then I think I had to go through building my entire business, like grind, 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 hustle, hustle, hustle. Like I have two kids and I'm busy and like this is how I live my life. And I remember my personal trainer, he went, because I had all this physical pain. I was like, my knees hurt and this happens, this happens. And like, I don't know what's wrong with me. My entire body hurts. And he just went, you're so tightly wound. And I went, no, like, no, not. Like, I was just so on, like, so hyper on that was like a shakeup point for me where it was like, what? Like a reflection back that I didn't even realize I had become like that. And then things happened with my business and I went like, I just don't care about it. I went through like 6 months of like, I don't give a shit what happens to my business. I could lose it today. I don't care. And it sent me super deeply into you're not your business. You're like, who are you with your friends? Who are you with your kids? Who are you when you're enjoying life? Like it was like a 6 month breakup of even caring what happened. Um, and that season allowed me to be like, wait a second, you're creative. Wait, you like to have fun. You can like sit here and not to think about the next thing you're gonna do. And so it was all of that, then jumping into breathwork and all of this that like it was a 2 year journey of
Yeah.
really intentional work where I would just say for anyone, if you're starting to notice this about you and you're like, holy shit, my whole day is like my schedule. It's my whole list. And like, what am I doing? You're so in it. My hummingbird always comes when we're like in deep conversation. It's so cute. It just popped up. Um,
Wow.
anyways, it's like you need to have that first little awareness that like that's not life. Like if you're and you feel like it is, but it's so slowly creating a little bit of space of nothingness. Like even if you gave yourself 30 minutes of nothingness in that really busy schedule, what happens? How anxious do you feel? Do you feel like you're worthless? Like what can you be doing? What can I do at this free time? Because that was me. Every second had to be like, what can I do? And then now I'm just like, I don't know. Sometimes I just lay on my bed and I'm like, I need a minute. I never would have given myself that before. So
And so that was all based on fear. And I kind of want to paint a
yeah.
picture of what you were mentioning with like the breath work and being still. So when we're think of like the feminine energy is very nurturing and receiving. We create life. We're a portal from a different world. Our female bodies are that.
Mhm.
We have a womb that brings in life. We are fucking incredible. I don't think people understand the potency and the power within their
Like
physical body and the portals that we are.
yes, I've been feeling this so much lately where I'm like, dude, what? Like as women, how worthless I felt for so long. Like I needed these boys to like me. And I'm like, I have literally like God energy in the center of me at
We
all
have
times to
God
create
energy. We all
life.
do.
Like,
Yes.
what? And we're sitting out here
Yes.
thinking we're worthless? Like, hello, tune back into our womb space. Yes. Okay, sorry,
Yes.
keep going.
Yes. So when you notice, like when you just sat and you were still and you weren't doing, you were allowing the state of allowing yourself to receive, which is when you became magnetic.
Mhm.
That's the missing piece for a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, I'm just gonna say. We think we have to do. And then you're like, what the fuck? Nothing's happening. I'm not making progress. No one's calling. My business isn't moving. Yeah, it's not. And it won't until you calm the fuck down
Spirit
and you
fingers.
relax into yourself and you become more connected and in alignment with yourself. And then you will allow things to unfold and to come to you. That's the missing point. When you are noticing, your knees hurt, all these bodily things, your body was trying to tell you something. Our body keeps score. Our body gives us silent nudges of like, slow down, Carly, take care of me, give yourself a minute. And you're like, I don't hear you. You don't exist. And then it's like,
No,
okay, I'm
I'm
making
just
it louder.
I booked 2 hit sessions a day because like I need to lose weight. So like let's just move more.
Yeah. And then you just don't lose the weight. Now you're frustrated because you're working out so fucking hard, but you're not losing weight. Of course you're not, and you won't. And that's not the way to do it. So yeah, your body keeps scoring. I I'm like a good friend with this amazing facilitator here in Portugal. Her name's Sevesta, and she does emotional release.
Mm,
We were at lunch the other day and we were talking about how even if you don't say recall or remember or live out traumas from the past, let's say something happened to you when you were young and it's like it doesn't really bother you, but you also haven't worked through it, it's literally stored as little packets somewhere in your system until you do. So then it's like you're triggered or you don't know why you're spaz about these things and it doesn't make sense to you. And it's like, okay, so there's something more internally going on that you haven't tended to. And maybe that you don't even really recall or think it would be something worth remembering. All of those emotions and traumas are underlying. And until you clear your energy system, you will live in that state and be sporadic and be angry and probably resentful and bitter and all these low vibrational emotions you will feel until you do the inner work, until you come to one of these amazing retreats,
mhm,
do the breath work, be a part of a community that can help you uncover these underlying issues that will continue to reside in your body until you do. And I also like I'm very visual. So when I'm coaching, I draw and I see pictures. I see like the female body, the vessel, and then what you could do and like what we can encourage your audience here, ever anyone who's listening to do is like you could draw out your body on like a piece of paper, stick form, body form, doesn't really matter, just draw it out. And then go back and like think of any little thing that you haven't acknowledged or worked through and draw like black dots everywhere and see how much you actually have that's stored in your system. And then when you can visually see it of like, holy shit, there's a lot inside that I've never expressed, never talked about. No wonder why I feel this way, or no wonder why this pattern keeps happening, or I'm always emotional around this. It's going to make so much more sense to you because there's things that need to be expressed, whether that's through breath work, through writing, through verbal. I don't often talk talk through things with my clients because it usually adds energy to that story. So that's a whole nother conversation. I feel like, Carly, I could sit here and talk to you for hours because it's just such a great conversation. But
I know.
getting
How
clear
much
on like
time do you have? Because I want to ask you something.
I've got time, go for it.
Okay. Okay. Because like the talking part, I felt this really strongly. I was always encouraged, like, go to talk therapy. Oh my God, it's so great. Da, 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 da. So I went and I just went, something's off here. And maybe it's a great entry point for people, but I went, all you're having me do is loop, 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 repeat. And if anything, I felt it was like, just like making the story more ingrained, where it's like eventually, yes, we can like talk through things, we can have awareness, but that's where I feel coaching rather than therapy is so valuable because you don't just want someone to listen to you. Like, yes, maybe you need that outlet, but eventually, like I've talked to women who are like, oh my God, I've been going to therapy for 7 years and I feel like I just worked through it in breath work. And I'm like, Yeah, because it's in your body and it's like your brain can loop around the thing over and over and over and over and over again. But it's like until you go to the root, feel it, release it, transmute it, it's not going away. And I feel like you can't, I really don't think you can transmute energy through talking. Like you just said, sometimes it almost fuels it versus get it out, express. Express is different than talking in a loop, obviously, where you're like having the realizations. And I think as women, I notice that for me. I'll talk through things. I'm like, oh shit, okay. But then it's like, now are you going to go have space for it, feel it, heal it, move through it? And I don't know. I just want you to elaborate on that. And then you said something else that was really good. I'm going to try to think what that was.
Okay, I've got so much to say on this because a lot of the women that I coach, they come to me and they're like, AZ, I've been in therapy for 8 years. What the fuck? I need, like, it's not working. And then so I coach with them 3 months and it's like they're a different person. I'll tell you why. I know why because I've seen this over and over and over. It is because when you speak about an experience and you constantly are telling the story, you are giving the story more life. You're adding energy to it. Think of your thoughts and the way that you speak, and then picture an engine behind them. So, whatever you're speaking, you have an engine behind, it's going to take off. If you are in a thought pattern for longer than 17 seconds, you will find another thought like that thought and it will grow. And then 17 seconds,
Ooh.
another thought like that will grow. And that goes for what we call positive or negative. The universe doesn't call it positive or negative. There's no positive or negative, it just is. But for us, we're like, this is a positive thought, this is a negative thought. So if you're in a negative loop, maybe you're in talk therapy and you're speaking to your therapist for 1 hour. I don't even know how many 17 seconds times over
I'll do
that
the
is.
math. I'll do the
Do the
math.
math. Yeah. So in 1 hour, 60 minutes, how many how many seconds would that be adding?
60 minutes is times 60 seconds divided by 17, 211.
So
Hopefully
that's a
that's right.
huge engine over and over and over. And then no wonder you're there for 7 years. You have added so much energy to this one bit of your life and you're wanting to heal from it. But what you're actually doing is you're adding more momentum to it. I'm going to pull up my notes. I'm going to read you something that I have written in my notes from today. Okay.
This is so good.
This is,
But I think this is also so freeing for people to understand that like there's nothing wrong with you, that going to talk therapy and you felt like you were doing all the right things and you haven't moved through it. It's like you just need a new modality to help you now.
I'll tell you what I think about that. I think that people thought that that was the way and they were doing the best with what they thought.
Yes.
Whereas now we're in the age of the awakening. Things are coming to light. We're having big, quick quantum realizations. It's happening really quickly. And now the new age, which you and I are, we're ushering in the new world. And we are seeing things from a different lens, a new light, and a new perspective. The people that are doing the talk therapy or that were holding space for the talk therapy, I do believe that's all that they thought and that's what they knew. So it's not to condemn it. It's not to say that
Yeah.
it's bad or anything like that. It's just there's a better way. And for me, I'm always about finding a better way to help you through so that you don't have to spend years upon years reliving the same story that you just want to work through. So your attention to it bites it in. Every thought that you give your attention to expands and becomes a bigger part of your vibrational mix. Whether it's a thought of something that you want or something that you don't want, your attention to it invites it into your experience. Since this is an attraction based universe, there is no such thing as exclusion. Everything is about inclusion. So when you see something that you would like to experience and you focus upon it, shouting yes at it, you add more of that into your experience. But when you see something that you do not want into your experience and you focus on it, shouting no at it, you also include that into your experience. You do not invite it in with your yes and exclude it with your no, because there is no exclusion in an attraction based universe. Your
Mm.
focus is the invitation, your attention is the invitation, because the law of attraction is behind the expansion of your thoughts. It is not possible to give your attention to something without achieving an alignment with it in some degree. The longer you ponder the thought, 17 seconds, and the more frequently you return to that one thought, the stronger your vibration and alignment to that thought becomes, which is why talk therapy, you're there for 7 years. You continue to add emotion, energy, vibrational mix, alignment to that thought. And that's what you continue to experience.
It's 11:11 here. I'll just say
Of course it
that.
is.
Angels. Uh, no, that's so good because I think in people when they're nude and they're trying to understand this law of attraction thing, they're like, okay, that's positive or that's negative, and there's energy and like that's so helpful to understand that rather than thinking right, wrong, good, bad, it's like all of it is just attraction.
All
And
of
so when
it.
you can master your mind to understand that like those thoughts you're thinking, it's bring awareness to it like, holy shit, I'm in a loop where I always think like the worst thing's going to happen to me. It's like, okay, acknowledge that that's there. And now it's like, how do you start to reframe? Because there's, what were you going to say?
Then shift, immediately
Yes,
shift up.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because I think the first step is awareness. So it's not all of a sudden, oh, I have negative thoughts and now I think positive thoughts. Okay, yes, but it's like, can you become aware of your normal patterns? And I think by
Mhm.
bringing awareness to it, you can go, oh, dang, like I always go to the negative. Okay, like how would I reframe this? How would I shift this? And then it's practice. It's the same way, like maybe the way you walk, you always hurt your knee because you do a weird thing with your foot. It's like, okay, you bring awareness to it, and now we're going to try to shift this a little and try to move it. It's not going to be instantaneous. Like, I believe things can be instantaneous, but for a lot of people, if you've lived your entire lives in a pattern, that you were completely unconscious of. Now that you have conscious awareness with it, how do you shift it? How do you change that? And then when you bring that awareness, I feel like that's when your life starts to change. But again, it's like, don't be hard on yourself. I think I've been working on the self-love journey. I like had awareness to it a decade ago. Still, like randomly old patterns will pop up and thoughts, and I go, oh, like she's back again. Okay, interesting. And then I'm like, what's going on in my life that's making me feel this way? Feel it, move it, and then it goes away. So it's like bringing those helpful tools, whatever your tools are, to work through it because it's like it doesn't always just magically disappear for life just because you worked through it.
Totally. I
Yeah.
would encourage anyone listening to take an audit of your thoughts. And then you'll be able to see, okay, this is a thought I have on repeat. And then it's like, no wonder this keeps happening. No wonder X, Y, and Z. It'll make so much sense to you if you actually audit your thoughts and you write them down, not even to judge them, but just to become the observer of your own thoughts. Take a pen and notebook with you or have it in your phone or whatever, and just write down your thoughts for one day. And then you can actually reflect back with that self awareness and say, okay, I'm in a pretty fearful state, or I'm in this loop all day. This one thought comes up all the time, and then you have the awareness. And so what you said of like you can't switch it immediately. There's a quicker way,
Yeah.
and that would be okay. Say you're in a loop and you have this negative what if that comes up, and you don't want to stay there. All that you would do is you have the awareness now, okay, if I stay in this for longer than 17 seconds, I know that another thought like that thought's going to join me. I know that that's how the universe works. So I'm going to focus on the blue sky. I'm going to focus that I'm grateful for the car that I'm driving right now. You don't even need to be extreme with it. All that you need to do is shift the focus. So you're here, acknowledge it, be with it, laugh at it. You're interesting, you keep coming up, befriend it, be kind to it. Don't try to avoid it or resist it, because then you resist the thought, it becomes stronger. What you resist will persist. So then you're in the thought, it's not serving you, you know this. And then, okay, I'm so grateful I'm able to listen to Carly's podcast right now. I'm grateful that I have this body to move with. I can't wait to see my friends tonight. Literally just like that. Just pivoting,
Yes.
pivot, shift, add that thought, 17 seconds, another thought like that joins it. And now your experience in that day to day is going to be a million times different than if you would have been confused and not know how to shift out of that. You just find a better feeling thought, and then soon you're off and you're well.
Yes, and that's where like you can shift the thought instantly, but the pattern may not shift instantaneously where it's gone. It's like, but you that
Totally.
right there. It's that conscious awareness, like, holy shit, I'm in that loop where like I'm thinking that thought and like, ugh. I think that's where that toxic positivity movement came from, where people were avoiding, like, ooh, can't be negative. And it's like, okay, well, negativity and like icky thoughts can still show up. Don't run away from them, and you're just like, okay, ew, I don't really like how that feels. And that's something I do a lot of the time when things feel really overwhelming and things are going crazy. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, everything feels like the world's on fire. I'll look outside and I'll be like, everything's still. The trees are fine. The wind is moving. The birds are happy. Like life is good. Like get away from the device, get away from what's happening and bring yourself back to that stillness of just everything else like is well. things are good, things are well. And I think when you can bring yourself and you have that to shift yourself to that state, whether it is like you get in a loop and you're like, okay, I'm throwing on a podcast, or I need to change the frequency of music I'm listening to, or I need to get off my phone because I'm noticing myself feeling anxious. It's just bringing the awareness to know what to do next to shift yourself out of that state. Um,
Yeah.
if you have anything else you want to say on that, and then I want you to end with just tying it into how we started, where you were in bodybuilding, the body, you were working with people and you realize, holy crap, it's a mindset. It's things internally that relate to the body. Because I think so many of us as women carry so much extra weight. And it's not I almost think for a lot of us, it's not even our own doing. It may not even be the food you're eating. Like your food could be on point and you're actually just carrying emotional baggage. You're carrying the weight of everyone else that is in your circles stuff on your shoulders, and it will store in your body as physical weight. And so I don't know if you want to speak to what you've witnessed in something that's really helped these people, because I feel that, and I just see weight now as like such a deep sadness and like often a disconnection with self, because it's like when
Mhm.
you can tune into you, I find when you're really centered and good in yourself and you know how to create those boundaries to not take on everyone's stuff, weight kind of starts to fall off. And that's been my experience with some people I've worked with. But of course, again, it's like there's so many factors here. That's not just as simple. And for me, I realized recently, it was after working with ayahuasca, actually, things taste different to me. I can't have certain foods, but I realized how much they were emotionally charged to my overwhelm or my stress or my like in a social setting when the energy of everyone else is too strong, I'll start
Mhm.
eating without thought. And I
Mhm.
only realized recently where I went, holy shit, even if it's people that I enjoy and people that I like, all of a sudden, if I don't feel centered and grounded in myself, I'll start snacking like crazy, like eating really, really, really fast. And I realized that's what I used to do as a kid at my grandma's
Mhm.
house with the whole family. And there was so much shit that was always happening and like negative and bad and dark things that I was like, that was my habit. And only like recently, I've done this work for how long? It came through and I went, oh, like that was the unconscious pattern, that it would remind me of those settings when there's lots of people around. It was big family gatherings and I would just shovel and then I'd get
Mhm.
sick. I'd get physically ill. And so I only realized it recently. And I'm like, how long have I been doing this work and working with nutrition, all the things? So it's like other things will start to still show up. And I feel like there's so many layers. Anyways, go ahead.
There is. So first off, eating well is a form of self-respect. And eating for a lot of people is also a coping mechanism of some sort. So what you've experienced in your upbringing is when you overwhelm big groups of people at grandma's house, you shovel the food that lasts, that doesn't end just because now you're older. So what I notice in the women that I work with is that a lot of the binge eating leads to becoming overweight, which leads to that really heavy, a lot of like that tummy pouch weight that a lot of people claim that's a struggle to lose. That is the word. So, first off, the way that you view weight loss, if you're using the word struggle and you're thinking that it's a hard thing, it's going to be impossible for you to lose the weight. Why? Your perception of it creates your reality. So, that's number one. The second thing is that if you are somebody who works all day and you're a busy mama and you're a superwoman and you're an entrepreneur and you're not taking the time to eat consistent, healthy meals throughout the day, there's only one thing that's going to happen. At the end of the day, you're going to finish, the kids are going to be in bed, your laptop's going to be closed, your willpower is shot and you're going to go for the first and the most convenient thing, whether that be on the drive home, whether that be the kids' snacks, whether you order in, you have no willpower left. And how could you? You're not meant to do it all. So then that's when that leads to the cycle of binge eating to the point where you don't stop. And then the next day you wake up, you feel shameful, regretful, guilty. So then you're not going to eat that day either. And then you haven't eaten consistent throughout the day, so you're pretty hungry, your willpower shot, the night comes, the cycle continues. This happens for years and years and years. If you are somebody who binge eats and you are not making time for your meals and having them with you at work or wherever you are throughout the day, this cycle will continue until you do. If you're wanting to end the binge eating cycle, number one, have breakfast, bring water with you throughout the day, and then bring at least 3 to 4 small meals with good amounts of protein, carbs, and fats for your workday or wherever you are. I can almost guarantee you at the end of your workday, the cycle will have ended. And the reason that it lasts so long is because that guilt and shame that's around it, that stores in the body, and then it's a repeat pattern. It's a repeat pattern. It's an emotion that you're used to, and you haven't worked through it, and you haven't ended the cycle, so you continue to experience it. I want to tell you a quick story. My girl from Self Mastery, my group mentorship, she came to me. She was like, I don't even know how much she weighed, like over 200, and I think it was like 200 and maybe 200 pounds, maybe just over 200 pounds. And like just not healthy, like not a good relationship, mentally not well, overweight, and didn't have a clue like how to get over this. Okay. Fast forward to today. It's been, I think, 3 or 4 months. She's lost 35 to 40 pounds. Her entire outlook on life is different and shifted. She's out of a toxic relationship. And all that happened was because she started to prioritize eating throughout the days, getting her steps in, leaving a toxic relationship, and then focusing on her well-being. There was nothing with restricting calories, excess cardio, a bunch of working out. None of that happened. And that is why she's been able to achieve this and also continue to make progress and sustain the progress, because it's done in a sustainable way. If you're wanting results that last, you have to do it in a way that you're not needing it right now. The thing that always gets me is
Mhm.
I'll have clients and they'll be like, okay, Azaria, I'm sure you can probably relate to this maybe at some level. They're like, Azaria, I want to lose 30 pounds like now. I'm like, okay, well, like hold up, because that's not how I coach. I'm not going to give you like a quick fix that's going to maybe have you drop X amount of pounds and then you're going to
Right.
be in the dump after that. That's not how I operate. So I'm not your coach. But if you're wanting sustainable approach and holistic approach, yes, I'm your girl. But the thing that always gets me is like, you've carried this weight for years, you've done nothing about it, and now all of a sudden you want it gone like that. How does that make sense? How is that even realistic to think that you've been this way for a certain amount of time and now you want something different, so now you want it now? It's so unrealistic, it's so unhealthy, and it's not going to work, and it never does. So it's just very interesting to see how people operate. And then when they get an idea, it's like, I don't want to wait, and I want to do this, and I want it now.
Mhm. It's the instant gratification
Yeah, it's got
where
to go.
it's just, but in anything, it's like you get the hit of inspo and you're finally like, okay, I'm ready to lose weight. You get the hit of inspo, it's like, oh, I'm gonna start a business. You get the, and it's like, okay, but when that feeling leaves, what's the root of why you're doing anything? And it's deeper than just like, oh, I always used to have people like that too when I did more nutrition coaching that would come to me like, I have a trip in 4 weeks, like what can we do? And I'm like, okay, well, like there's lots, like you can start moving toward it, but like there's no guarantees. I can't guarantee you can drop like even 10 pounds in 4 weeks. Like maybe, depending on fluid and all the things, but like, what are you going to do to go longer than that? Because if you keep setting a goalpost for it, you're always going to, I feel, come up short or like not feel excited because you always gain it back. You haven't,
Yeah.
it's like you said in the beginning, you haven't dealt with the root of why the weight was there in the first place. And I've witnessed that too. The people who are in a really unhealthy, toxic relationship, they end up finally finding maybe the courage or the worth within themselves to leave for themselves, and weight comes off. They're not changing anything. Food didn't change. The workouts
Yes.
maybe didn't even change. And it's like you're dropping the weight. And I think it's reframing what we think about physical weight. Of course, there's calories in and movement, and all those things are important. And the foods we're eating, but it's like you also have to factor in your environment, who you're living around, what your day to day is. I think people talk about stress levels for weight, but it's like it's not just stress levels. It's like who's what are you listening to? Because if you're
Mhm.
consuming negative, dark stuff, or you let everyone dump on you, or you prioritize everyone else outside of yourself, of course you're carrying weight. You're carrying all of these people's stuff all of the time. So it's like when you can create that almost like little bubble where you don't need to always take it on, because I used to do that. Again,
Mhm.
something that I realized I did when I was younger. I would almost store it. And it was showing me in my body where I was like, oh, all these poor little tissues have been just holding it for me because I wasn't ready to like consciously deal with it or feel it or understand it. And so like thank it. Thank the little bit of arm fat that they're holding all the shit that you didn't have the ability to go through or let go of. It's like when you can come at it from a place of love where you're like your body's just doing its best to hold what you haven't been ready to either let go of, move through, or have the awareness that you're even holding yourself. And then I'm like, I already feel
Mhm.
it. I'm like, I know that there's extra fat that I've had on my body that I'm like, it's going to start going away because I don't feel the need to keep holding it. And when it starts to come back,
Mhm.
it's like, do a check-in. Because like, what are you holding right now that's not yours to hold that you're now storing in your body because you wouldn't take the time to deal with it? And it's like, it's that dance because it's obviously, it could be food too, but I'm like, I know it's not food. It was habits and things that I was doing where I was taking it all on. So what does it do
Mhm.
for my body? Stores as extra weight. And like you said with the stomach thing, I always had that story of like, I realized when it started because I saw a picture of me the other day when I was like 14 and I was like, weird. I never used to carry stomach fat when I was a kid. So what all of a sudden changed where I started carrying stomach fat? And it was a picture of me, I must have been like 14-ish, and I had a belly and I went, okay, so it's always been there. But I was like, but it wasn't always there. So what happened? And it's like I
Mhm.
was carrying everyone's shit. And so until I brought awareness to that, I'm like, I won't be surprised if all of it starts to melt away because I don't
Yeah.
feel the need to carry it anymore.
Yeah, so if you can like get a visual of like when you feel heavy and like if in a heavy relationship or your heavy workload or your heavy friends, that heaviness is literally weight and it's showing and it's becoming form in physical appearance of weight gain because you're in that heavy state. When you are free of the shit, the burdens, people's things that they dump on you, and you're in a good space, you're feeling good, you're around good people that love you, your body's also a reflection of that good state. And you will feel immediately lighter. And when you feel immediately lighter, your weight will also reflect that. That is how it's all intertwined. And it's like, I love this conversation because it's such a new age way to view weight loss and the
Yeah.
whole journey. And then befriend who you are. Like, don't think that you're going to hate yourself in a
Mm,
way that's going to make you change. That will never be the case. You can't hate yourself into loving the way that you look. So if you can appreciate your body, even though maybe you're not extremely happy or even healthy with it right now, but you can learn to love parts of you and then make that healthy change in the way that you're showing up in the world. You're also going to appreciate it much more then when you get to that goal weight because you'll have appreciated it in the stage you are now.
mm, it's so true. Yeah, and I went through all of that. It was like a decade ago. The self-love stuff of like trying to hate myself into the lean body for bodybuilding. It's like, no, when I started appreciating it, everything changed.
And so for me with bodybuilding, I never hated myself into any change. I was like, oh my gosh, girl, look what you can do. Let's see what more you can do. Like it was always like a very enlightening, energizing dynamic for me in bodybuilding. And that's why like
Mm.
before at the beginning of our conversation,
Yeah,
I mentioned that I didn't feel caged because I was like, holy shit, this is like so cool. And I loved myself all the way through every stage. It
yeah,
was kind of like it just kept getting better and I kept being more in love with the way that I looked. And like I never felt at any point in time that I didn't like who I was or what I looked like. It was completely
right.
different than that. Right.
It's coming from a different energy. And so many people at the high level, I feel like that has to be the root, right? Of like for a lot of people that
Yeah.
can do it for a long time. But at the lower level, so many people do it out of a like they hate themselves and they think if they do this, it'll make them feel better. Like if I
Yeah.
just get the abs, then someone will love me. If I just get lean enough, then maybe I'll be seen as like worthy or strong or valuable, whatever. And so it is. It's again, it's always the energy it's coming from. And you came at it like you had that from the beginning, which is why you're probably so successful at it too, because it you weren't trying to force yourself into something that you didn't truly love.
That's the only way that I think it lasted as long as it did. And
Yes.
that's why I continue to live a healthy life. Like it's not like I know you've probably seen some competitors, and my heart goes out to the competitors too that have a really hard time after prep and
Yeah.
that they can't seem to get into any groove and they're like pretty overweight because of prep. Like it breaks my heart to see that
Yeah.
because that doesn't have to be the case, but it is for a lot of competitors because now you've wrapped your whole identity. Now you don't know who you are and you've done it from a weird space. And now what are you without it? And then that's when it kind of just like snowballs in like a really quick way and the body it's just not good. So
I
yeah, my
know.
heart goes out to anyone who has experienced the other side of shows because that's actually more common than how I have.
Way more common.
And
Totally.
it's yeah, it's something that's not really talked about either. It's kind of like the dark side of bodybuilding.
Yeah. Well, it's the rebound, right? Where it's almost
Yeah,
expected, oh yeah, you'll just gain 20 pounds right after. And it's
that's not
because
normal.
no,
It's
it's
not
not
normal.
normal. And for your body, I mean, yeah, I've gone through binge eating all the things. And so I'm like, I know
Yeah.
what that feels like. And you just, it is because your whole body just got wrapped into what you looked like. And then now to not have the same physique, it's like, it's the same thing with the identity of like being the overachiever. Okay, well, now who are you? If your whole
Yeah.
identity was that abs and how you looked on stage, like who are you without it? And it's,
Mhm.
again, it's always the energy and like the root of how you're coming about it.
Yeah, I could talk to you
And
for hours because there's
I know
identity stuff too.
so much.
We'll have to connect again.
I know. This is so good. Okay, where can people find you? And yeah, if there's anything upcoming, I know you have a retreat coming up. This will go out way before that. But in BC.
Yeah,
And
and
it's so interesting you brought up emotional release in Portugal. I almost did a course in Portugal on emotional release. And then like life
yeah,
happened. I was like, okay, it's not time yet. But I'm like, I wonder if I'll be pulled back to that at some point.
yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like once you come here and you experience it, it'll be a space for you in some capacity.
Yeah.
I don't believe like anything in life is coincidence. I don't believe you and I are having this conversation for no
Yeah.
reason. I don't believe in that. I know that there's something greater for us, even
Mhm.
just knowing each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to see where that takes you. So you can find me on Instagram at AZ_fitness, and then my Rise Daily page is there too. We have an upcoming retreat, women's wellness retreat in Kelowna, BC, the April 12th to 15th. It's 3 days, no, sorry, 4 days, 3 nights, all inclusive. I've rented a lakeside like mansion on, it's a resort on Kelowna on the lake in Kelowna. So it's
Love.
going to be like an incredible time. There's a couple like VIP tickets left. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can just send me a personal message and we can see how it all lines up.
Hey, wait, before we end, I just need to say this because I was thinking about it earlier. I was thinking about when we were at Metrotown Mall and I knew your sisters, but I think you were younger. Were you younger or older than your other sisters?
So all of us, we're all 18 months apart. So we've got our
Are
brother
you the
Tim.
oldest or
I'm the
Haja?
middle.
Okay.
So Hasia's 18 months older than me, and I'm
Okay.
18 months older than Yakira.
Because I remember we were at Metrotown Mall, and this is just how funny. Like nothing is a coincidence. Because I remember, I think you had the braids, and you were like all tan and so
Oh
cute and
yeah.
small and like cool. And I remember being in Metrotown Mall, and I didn't really know you, but I knew Haja, and just seeing you guys all together, and how literally, you guys, that's our connection point. We met, like I
Yeah.
think I met Haja because of Sylvia, and we were in a field, and like we got drunk one time and whatever, and it's like then we stayed in your mom's hotel room, like just random stuff from like way, way, way back in the day. And it's like literally, then you became this bodybuilder, blah, blah, blah. Like we haven't talked. This is our
Yeah.
connection point, which I'm like, I just think, even to think back to like when you were 14, 18 doesn't matter. There's nothing as a coincidence. And how now, like our lives are lining up. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I've been feeling this pull to
Yeah.
here in Europe and like all these things. And I'm just like, there's never a coincidence for any interaction, no matter how small it seems. There's always a reason for it. So to remember that in like everyone you come across and interact with on a daily basis, it's just so cool.
Oh, my whole body's lit up with people bumps.
Yeah.
But I so believe that. And okay, so this is my view on like connections and knowing people. There has been thousands of people, millions of people that have come before us, and there will
Mhm.
be millions of people that come after us. And you and I, and you and I, and everyone here listening, we are
Mhm.
here at the exact same time, at the exact same place. Don't you think that's something to celebrate and to utilize for your highest good? Don't you think it makes sense to be involved in each other's lives? This isn't this isn't a coincidence. This isn't just the way life is. This is all on purpose. There's meaning to it all. And I think it's up to us as individuals to see that and then find that meaning and connect and actually be with the people that were like, I'm grateful to walk this earth with you at this time. Because if I was 100 years older or later, we wouldn't be having this
Yeah.
conversation. And we're here and
Yeah.
we're doing it. I told Hasia before our call, I'm like, I'm doing a
Yeah.
call with Carly. And she's like, that's so awesome. I remember she said, she's like, I
Yeah.
remember when we got drunk. How old are you guys? Like 14?
14? I don't
Yeah.
know.
And so you guys go way back and we've known each other from then. It's just that we haven't like connected on this level.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful for this opportunity and like I'm excited to see what the universe has in store for
Mhm.
everybody.
Whoa, I just fell off my chair. But yeah, me too. I just love it. I can't even believe we ended up talking for another like 40 minutes. I'm like, whoa, where did that time go? Anyways,
There's so
this was
many layers and conversation pieces that, like I said, I could talk to you for days.
literally, I'm like, there's so much to unpack. Like to go in on an hour combo, it's like there's so much here, and so much depth and just journeys and everything. So I'm so
Mhm.
grateful. Thank you for being here. I'm excited for people to hear this conversation, and I'll make sure to link you in the show notes. So thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Carly. I appreciate your time.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, have a good day, girl.
You too.